Hi everyone, welcome back to WHU TV. It's nice to see you. I hope you're keeping well and not sweating as much as I am at the minute. You're going to see this little thing coming up quite a fair bit. Is absolutely freaking roasting in this room, so apologies for that, guys. But thank you very much for tuning in. This video we're basically going to be talking about the first 4 weeks of West Ham with Mark, as it always is. But guys, before we go live, in terms of that, just going to do a quick shout out to the channel sponsor 3retro.com. Please click the link in the description below that will take you directly through to the West Ham section of their website, where you can purchase some really nice retro gear, guys, as you can see, as always, from the icon that's up here, along with Admiral and Umbro track jackets, polo shirts, sweatshirts and t-shirts. So go check those out, just as a really nice little track jacket comes up. Any purchases you make through the link in the description below, the commission that the channel would normally be getting, as I always do, I'll be sending it on to the charity Iron Supporting Food Banks. They're based in the Newham area, and they're helping those in the Newham area and the Essex County and further afield for that matter, to help put food on the table for people that have been really struggling over the last few years. So guys, go grab yourself a really nice retro shirt. You'll be saving yourself a few quid in comparison to the club shop, and you'll be helping those less fortunate than you and I. So guys, as always, the live chat is open, so put your live comments in as we're talking about things. But let's welcome back Mark. Mark, how you doing, mate?
Yeah, pretty well, thanks, JP. Thanks for having me on, as always. It's a pleasure to be here. And obviously, as you just said there yourself in the intro, trying my best not to sweat too much or melt away in this this unexpected heat wave. But yeah, not complaining too much, because it's hey, we'll be moaning in a few months that it'll be -5 or whatever. So
that's a good point, actually, mate. Yeah, it's a good point. Take full advantage of it while we can, ladies and germs. Talking of germs, here's Russ. Good evening, mate. Ebony. I swear he does that on purpose a lot of the time. But yeah, guys. Okay, so first and foremost, Mark, while I'm patting myself down, give us your thoughts on the West Ham transfer window first and foremost, because obviously since the last time you and I spoke, the window's closed.
Yeah, well, I think really we've done really well. I don't think there's any player that you'd look at and go we've signed badly. I think that every player that we've signed effectively could potentially go straight into the starting 11, which I think is a great thing. So straight away we're also strengthening the depth that we've got in the squad, which is fantastic. We've got great competition for places. Not just with the new players coming in, but I think in general now in the squad. And to be honest, I think we've had probably one of the best windows, if not the best window we've had since moving to the London Stadium.
It's a good point, actually. Yeah, because if you think about it, we signed 12 players in that summer window. And who did we end up with for more than one season? Bloody Arthur Masuaku. Don't get me wrong. He was a very, very versatile player for us. Obviously, he's going to be well remembered for that goal against Chelsea that he didn't mean in any shape or form. Just like Konchesky in the FA Cup final. I don't care what he says. He blatantly didn't mean that. But yeah, I still think if we just kept hold of Faguli, I really think we would have had a better season. He was one of the better signings in that transfer window. Would you agree?
I must admit, at times I wasn't convinced by him, but I think looking at who else we signed in that window, then yes, he definitely was one of the better ones that we signed. I mean, it probably wasn't that difficult. We think someone like Goktsore, for example, Jonathan Kaleri as well, and I think one of the things, I know that there was that rumour on this window, sort of quite early doors with Tim Stein and David Moyes not getting on and all of that. But I sort of feel that, I mean, first of all, it's a new relationship. There's going to be some sort of teething problems initially, and I don't quite know what everyone was expecting, to click immediately, because Moyes has got his ideas and clearly Tim Stein had his. But I think in general, part of the reason why I'm saying that I feel this is one of the best windows that we've had is that there hasn't actually been, or certainly that hasn't been reported, I should say, any interference from anybody up above, i.e. Sullivan, because we always used to get at least one player in the window that was blatantly obvious a Sullivan special that was, a bit like, I know Moyes come out of all that stuff about Danny Ings in January, that he's always wanted him and all that. But I think there was also comments that David Sullivan was gifting Danny Ings to Moyes to try and help us, pull away from trouble last season, which obviously his impact was
to a
pretty,
degree, mate. I know what you mean, but to a degree,
Yeah.
I think it was a 50-50 in that instance. Because
Yeah,
when he was
but-
over at Real Sociedad, he was trying to get him over there as well. So, and
Yeah.
again, I take issue with the rumours that have been coming out about Steiden and Moyes not getting on, because it clearly isn't the case. It clearly isn't the case. If that was the case, the squad wouldn't be playing as well as we have been for the 4 or 5 games, because that stuff trickles down. It really genuinely trickles down to everything. I think there's obviously at the end of the day, Moyes has hinted a little bit at there being a little bit of confrontation, because he said, I don't want him to agree with everything that I'm putting down. Otherwise, he's not. There's no point in being here.
Yeah. No.
So there is obviously they've had conversations, which is completely normal. Because at the end of the day, Steiden was probably having conversations towards the end of the season, like fucking Declan Rice was with Arsenal. And then which is what got him into the club in the first place. And Steiden's very used to working a certain way. Moyes is used to working a certain way. So of course there's going to be clashes. But again, I don't think it's as bad as everybody's been trying to make it out to be. In the same way that I don't think that Mark Noble's first 2 weeks wasn't as fractious and heated as certain toxic websites were trying to make people believe it was.
Yeah.
I remember I saw a picture up on Facebook. A meme up on Facebook, I should say, that is completely eloquent. So it said for those that are trolling kids for still believing in Santa Claus are probably the same people they believe everything they read on Facebook. And it's it's the same thing. It's the same thing with football fans, right? As much as I love Steve, he's a guy next in the seat next to me. The Chelsea game, I was telling him he's chatting a lot of crap because he believes not everybody, the majority of people do. He believes everything that the people say. 95% of it's complete and utter bollocks. For example, Antonio's failed move to the Saudi Arabia league because he failed a medical. No, he failed terms. That's what I'm saying. And there's no smoke without fire, of course. But at the same point, and I agree with you from what you were saying, guys. And there's 7 people watching. Thank you very much. Put your comments in the comment section. It's bloody autofocus here. This is how bloody hot it is in here, man. There's got to be moisture on the lens or something. It keeps flapping about.
I think sorry, JP, just as well. The other thing as well with this Moyes and Steiden thing not getting on, there was, they did the I can't remember what they called it now. It wasn't the Players Award, but there was before the season started, there was a team, whatever, like a celebration of winning the Conference League. And the reports were that they were having a laugh and a joke. So, I agree with what you're saying. I don't think that it's anywhere near as bad as what has been reported. And I think, again, I think Moyes has said this himself. He has probably, with all due respect to Steiden, probably has a better idea of what a Premier League player should look like.
Yeah.
Because he's been, he's been managing for 20, 22, 23 years, pretty
Something
much.
like that, yeah.
In this division. So he's got a good idea. I think clearly Steiden has. And I think that they've worked out between them what they want, which is powerful, quick players. And I think with the possible exception of Ward-Prowse, I don't think he's blessed with great pace. I think it's fair to say that the signings that we have made this summer fit that profile, and they're physical as well. And I think that's another, another important thing as well for me.
Yeah, absolutely agree with you. Obviously the jury is out in terms of Mohamed Kudus because he had like 5 minutes against I was going to say Lincoln, but that's next week, isn't it? But yeah, Luton, yeah, I agree. I mean, to be honest with you, mate, as it turns out, I said to Bill, when me and Bill and Dennis we went down to the bowling, a few weeks
Yeah.
weeks into July, I think it was. I said to him, and I still maintain it. I said I'd be surprised if we get James Ward-Prowse. I'd be very, very surprised, and I was that we got him. You know, don't get me wrong; he's a quality player. That's one of the reasons why I was worried that we weren't going to get him, because I thought he was going to go abroad with his age being relegated. I thought, you know, he doesn't want to play in the Premier League again if he's not going to be playing for Southampton. And obviously he started their first league game before we got him, so that's one of the reasons why he made his debut against Chelsea 2 games in. But yeah, Dennis is in. Thanks, mate. Yep, first of July. Thank you, but I know it was July sometime. But I did say I'd be surprised, and Bill would agree with me. It was a nice surprise. Wouldn't be surprised in a bad way in any shape or form, but it was a nice surprise. But we don't need pace when it comes to the midfield, as we've found out. I know what you mean. It's nice to have nippy midfielders in there, but you know, for a club to sell, you know, to get rid of Lanzini, yeah, we sold Scamacca, we sold Rice, and you know,
Vlasic as well.
Vlasic as well for peanuts in comparison to what we paid for him. There's a loss there, but with the money, as you remember, I said to you and Jeff at the time when we did that pre-season thoughts conversation.
Yeah.
I said at the time, you know, we've got around about 120, 160 million pounds to play with before any sales were going on, and we've made a 15 million pound profit on selling Declan Rice and Scamacca and Vlasic, and the money saved on Lanzini's wages and all their other wages as well, for that matter. Probably works out to probably more when you look at the bigger picture. But in terms of net spend versus sales, then bam, you know, it's so. Yes, I agree with people. You can't disagree with them in any shape or form when they say West Ham didn't spend anything, because we didn't. The money was taken out of the player sales but Gonzo did a very good video earlier last week, if I remember correctly, saying about that West Ham have paid off some of the debt. That makes sense. Makes total sense. You made a profit. You know that money can go towards wages and for the coming season. So the TV money, sponsorship, etc., can go on the club debt. More than happy with that. More than happy with that. And that's what again, it's showing that the club is trying to sort themselves out in terms of the borrowing. I mean, be interesting to find out the full details of finding out that the club have mortgaged Rush Green, which is a little bit worrying. You know, that means that, I mean, there's obviously something going on that we need some extra money very, very quickly. But again, that could be robbing Peter to pay Paul. That could be part of paying off some of the loans that we've borrowed elsewhere. Dennis has asked a good question. We were linked with James Ward-Prowse last summer, but he was quoted at 70 million. Had we signed him last summer, how much better do you think we would have been in the league? Albeit this would mean no Paquetá. Good question, Den. Mark, give us your answer.
I don't think we would have signed Paquetá. I honestly don't believe that there would have been enough money within the football club to, you know, because we signed Paquetá. I think in the end it's going to come to about 50 odd million, isn't it? I think in the end. So if you look at that for 70 for Ward-Prowse, which would have been over the top, you know, even though obviously a year younger.
Yeah.
I think that we wouldn't have signed both. And I think that if you think that Paquetá was sort of seen probably like the marquee summer signing last year. I think to be
him and Scamacca really. I think, but yeah, you're not far off, mate.
If Ward-Prowse had been at 70 million, the marquee summer signing, I think there would have been West Ham social media would have had a complete and utter meltdown. Don't get me wrong.
When doesn't it? To be fair, mate, when doesn't it?
Yeah, but I think this probably would have gone into overdrive. To be perfectly honest, I really do. And don't get me wrong. I'm delighted that we signed Ward-Prowse. I think I was probably in a minority of fans over on Twitter that was quite keen on him coming in. You know, obviously everyone knows about his set piece quality. I'm not going to bang on about that too much, but having watched a fair bit of Southampton like last season, not just sort of happen, not through choice. You know, you could clearly see that what else he does bring to the team. We know about, you know, the leadership side of it. We know the quality that he has. He can ping a pass, but he's very good at keeping the ball. But for me, I don't think we would have signed Paquetá as well last year. But so I don't think it would have made an awful lot of difference to us in the league.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, mate, apart from the fact that Dennis is looking for retribution on what you said last year, it's an irrelevant it's an irrelevant question because we didn't. And it wouldn't have happened because otherwise we would have paid 60 million for Ward-Prowse this season. Relegation or not, we would have paid it. So I know why Dennis is asking it, and that's exactly the reason why he's asked you it, because he knew he said exactly the same everything that he says. But it's absolutely true. But the reality of it is the fact that it was never going to happen because the money was too much. So therefore we went elsewhere and bought a younger and more, you could argue, dare say it, a more talented midfielder in the position as a result of it. Right, so so very very good transfer window. We saved ourselves a few quid as well, for that matter. Granted, it looks like the money's gone elsewhere, which is perfectly fine. I'm happy with that. That's longer term thinking. Bring the debts down. However, the issue surrounds left back, right back, and centre forward. Yeah, if we'd have bought in those positions, bearing in mind all three of those positions we need to sort out this coming summer, or possibly even January, because there's no way unless we sell him in the summer, there's no way Cresswell's going to get another extension, especially after the hissy fit that he seems to have pulled. Ben Johnson, Soufal, both of those contracts are up at the end of this now season, as is Antonio's, I think, if I remember correctly, or was it the season after? It's very very close. Do you think we'll try and get something in the pipeline now to do those replacements in January, or do you think the club's going to wait 12 months, 10 months?
I think so. I'll go backwards. I'll go with the centre forward position first.
Okay.
I wouldn't be surprised if the rumours were true that team from Saudi Arabia wanted Antonio before this season started. I think that they'll be back in January. If that's how they feel that strongly about him. So I think that we've definitely got to look to sign someone, because Antonio's 33, is he? I think 34.
About round about that, yeah.
So he's probably only got maybe this season and maybe 2 at best. So 3 years in total left, I think, at the Premier League, and that's probably being generous. It's probably more realistically 2 years. I think that it's clear that Danny Ings hasn't got a future either at West Ham in like long term. I think I've watched the Luton recap that you did, and I think you made some good points on there about Ings. I think can still support the team in terms of appearances. I would like to see Mwamba maybe come on and sort of stretch the defence in the closing moments of games rather than Ings, because I think that invites pressure on. So I think we've got to be looking definitely at centre forward. For real, and I know we were looking to get someone in, and obviously a few things didn't quite materialise. So I think that they are actively looking. So I think that's really encouraging from the centre forward perspective. In terms of the right back position, I'm not as worried that we didn't go and sign anybody this window. I'm fairly confident that Vlad will sign a new contract. Obviously, I know we're going to touch on it in a little bit later, but obviously we know that his big mate, Big Tommy Souček's obviously signed one as well. So I expect that he'll sign a couple of years or whatever on that. So I'm not too worried about him. And I think with Kera there as well, I think we've got enough. If it was to be Kufau and Kera. Personally, I feel. There's 2 things with Ben Johnson. When he first come into the team, looked really impressed, looked really good, looked quite good defensively. Maybe not too good at going forward with sort of his crossing ability.
Liverpool, for example.
Yeah, exactly, and that as well. And I think that the issue that I've got with him, there are 2 things. Obviously, there's one rumour that he feels that he should be earning a first team wage. Now, I don't know what that is, but I'm assuming that's going to be in the region of sort of 50, 60 grand a week, I would assume.
Yeah,
He's not a 50, 60 grand a week footballer at this moment in time.
agreed.
He's got a lot of improving to do, and I feel last year, I know I've got some sympathy for him because he gets moved around a little bit. He plays right back, he goes to left back. He obviously had a couple of games at the start of the season where he was playing centre half as well, and he never got a proper run in any position. And I think that his confidence got dropped, got dented quite a bit as a result, especially when we were struggling at the start of the season with the very poor form that we showed last year. But then again, he did very, very well for the under-21s was it the under-21s in the summer where they obviously had a fantastic.
Yeah, the Euros, they won it.
Yeah, so he must have some pedigree about him, right? He can't be that bad, but he's got a hell of a lot of improving to do for me, in my mind, to justify getting a new contract. So the jury for me is very much out on him. And he wouldn't be that high up the pecking order. I think that they've got to try and make sure they get Vlad to sign a new deal. I think the form that he showed at the back end of last year was more like the Vlad that we know, especially defensively. So he would be the priority for me. And then the left back, I find the whole Aaron Creswell situation baffling, to be honest. I didn't think he was that type of personality to try and force through a move. He's been here, 9 seasons, sorry. And I think he's had 2 or 3 seasons where he was probably a little bit off the pace. I think for the most part, he has been a very, very good player for West Ham and one of Allardyce's better buys. I think that's probably fair to say. Generally, Mr. Reliable, Mr. Consistent as well. And he played a major role in obviously, finishing 6th and 7th in the Premier League when, Moyes' first 2 full seasons. So if you're weighing it up from that point of view, you go, well, yeah, why would you not want to keep a player like that? The assists that he was getting from the set plays. But for me, knowing now that he wants to go and that he's thrown a bit of a hissy fit because he wasn't either getting a new contract that he wanted or then we wouldn't let him go, I wouldn't be that upset personally if he was to go, because I sort of feel you don't want people like that at your football club.
I know what you mean, mate. It does kind of feel like an Arnautovic 2.0 sort of situation again,
definitely.
Doesn't it? And that might be one of the reasons why. But yes, Dennis, I understood the comment you made. I understood it. Listen to the words that are coming out of my mouth, as you like to say on a regular basis. But yeah. But you're right. It is. I said you were right in it. The whole point. But yeah. And Dave's in the room. Hello, mate. Good to see you. What the bloody hell are those? What the hell? But yeah. But I agree, mate. You see, the problem is, and it is a problem for me because as much as I love this player, he's not a right back. Moyes wants Kehrer at right back. He's a centre back at the end of the day, and all right, maybe now that Rice is gone and as a result, as a part of a result of that, we're playing better football. I mean, we started building a bit of momentum again about March, April time, but anyway. So maybe Kehrer is performing better at right back than if he is, then why isn't he starting over Soufal as a result of it? There's loads of questions that can come round as about that. But mate, I agree. It's I personally would like to see, spoiler alert for the Lincoln preview in a couple of weeks. I would genuinely like to see Mubama and Ings up front together against Lincoln. No disrespect to Lincoln in any shape or form. It's just the fact that we need other options. And we're certainly not going to try those in the Europa League this coming season. No way in hell. That's going to be. And again, that kind of answers a question, which we'll come on to because obviously the next game that is next weekend is City at home. But and Russ has said in terms to Creswell, said I wouldn't want him at my club either. Yeah, it's fine, mate. Yeah, he's too good for Arsenal anyway. So, but yeah, it is. It's a successful window. Don't get me wrong. It's a successful window. I class it as 8 out of 10. And I still maintain. As I said to Rashane Thomas when he was tweeting about it, asking everybody, I said the only reason why it's not a 9 or a 10 out of 10 is because we were pissed about at the start of the negotiations with Rice when it shouldn't have been, and we were pissed about at the end of the window when we were trying to bring in other players. So it's out of West Ham's hands, but at the same point, you have a backup for a backup. That's the whole point of why they look about 4 or 5 different. Make inquiries about 4 or 5 different players in different positions and stuff. But yeah, But you're right, mate. It is one of the best transfers summer spendings we've done in the summer since moving to the London Stadium. You could also argue to a degree probably before that as well. Really, I mean, I can't really remember a season where we've had a good summer transfer window, with the exception of Tevez and Mascherano. Yeah, I mean, even that was catastrophic.
Well, that was a surprise, wasn't it? That was a last minute.
Exactly.
Changed.
Yeah,
Nothing's changed. It doesn't matter who's in charge.
I mean, that Palermo game, right? I think it was Palermo, the first Europa qualifier that we played.
Yeah.
They both of them had signed like 2 days beforehand.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nobody, you could see on the pitch, nobody knew what the hell they were going to do when they were given the ball.
No, definitely. I think probably for me, I think I alluded to this last time I was on, that the last really strong window that we had, I know we've signed some good players, but I think if you go back to the last season at the Boleyn, obviously Payet, Lanzini coming on loan, and obviously we then signed him permanently the following summer. Bonner, Antonio. I know it took him a while to it was about January time before he really got into the team. Victor Moses on loan, and I think he gets forgotten about.
Yes,
quite a lot,
loved him. Absolutely loved him.
As well. I actually thought it was quite nice to see West Ham actually, I alluded to it earlier, actually having some pace and some power in the team, and he definitely was that. And there you go. A couple of years later, he's playing right wing back, winning the Premier League with Chelsea under Conte.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think who else. Well, not maybe such a strong player, but they signed Nikola Jelavic as well. And
that was a Moy signing before a Moy signing, that, wasn't it?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and the centre forward they signed from, I think, Fenerbahce in January on loan. I'm trying to think.
Demba Ba.
Vaz
Tate. You could also say like Demba Ba as well for that. Yeah, Obina, I absolutely loved him. It was they were quality players for us. So yeah, that's what I'm saying. You can pinpoint a couple of ones here and there, but in terms of an actual summer transfer window itself, when it's been 4 or 5 players, I mean, you're right. Three of those were in the same transfer window. But yeah, I do generally think that. Yeah, this is going to be for a lot of the for a lot of the social media rights, it's going to be a benchmark for a long time, unfortunately. But let's not forget as well, for that matter, while we're talking about it, because Lingard's still in training with the club. He is now the same age as the guy we got from Man United who scored against Spurs. What was his name?
We got from Man United.
Ravel Morrison. They're both exactly the same age now. Just let that one sink in a bit.
Wow. Well, I think it's fair to say, I'm not, to be honest, I don't know, but is Ravel Morrison playing for? He was at Derby, weren't he? Has he followed Rooney to Washington DC?
There was rumours about it, yeah. Whether it ever actually happened or not, I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah.
But yeah,
the Lingard one is interesting. I don't know about it. I'm not entirely sure how I feel about it. I mean, I think it's fairly obvious to say that when we got him in on loan, he looked an absolute world beater. He looked different class. 16 games, what was it, 9 goals, I think, or something like that he got. I mean, and we don't get me wrong, he obviously was a massive contributor to us finishing 6th, but we were already doing pretty well before he joined.
we were 3rd or 4th by the time he came in that January.
You could argue we actually got worse, but
yeah, there is that, of course. But
I mean, I am joking, because his performances were fantastic. I understand Man him wanting to try and fight for his place the following year at Man United. You know, why not? You know, it's his boyhood club. You know, and obviously I think there was a few family reasons as well for him wanting to stay there. So you can't really fault him really from that perspective. I think last year he made a massive mistake. You know, I know he's done the interviews going, "Oh, West Ham didn't show me enough love," and all of that. Whether or not if he means you didn't offer me enough money or whatever. I mean, I think that's what he means. Yeah, you know, and I think you know, which is a shame. It really generally is a shame that, you know, players are still motivated. I know it's a short career and all of that, but he knew what it was like when he was at West Ham before, and that West Ham effectively built their attacking play in that second half of the season around Jesse Lingard. I don't think there's any denying that. So I'm still pretty angry that he left. Sorry, that he went to Nottingham Forest, or disappointed that he did that. But if we're going to get him on a free transfer, yeah, well, clearly, because he obviously hasn't got a club. But if he's going to be on a kind of like almost like a pay-as-you-play, you know, performance incentive contract.
Yeah.
Obviously, clearly, he's not going to be playing in the certainly the first part of the European games this year. Obviously, we announced the squad a few days back. But from that point of view, we haven't got anything to lose.
Exactly.
Really, I don't think, and he is versatile.
Mm-hmm.
He can play right wing, left wing. He can play as a number 10. I think it's worth the gamble personally. If it's on a performance, as long as it's not, we're not talking, you know, 50 grand a week basic plus performance. He's got obviously, you know, you've got to bring it way down to that. So I wouldn't have an issue personally.
No, I completely agree with you. It works on so many levels. He's classed at homegrown, so he won't make the league numbers any different.
Yeah.
You know, I agree with you 100%. It needs to be an incentive based contract. Always reminds me of I can't remember which player Harry Redknapp was talking about, but he said he turned down a striker because he wanted a goal bonus, and said, "Well, I'm buying you to score bloody goals," you know, and that's the thing. But yeah, he's homegrown. He knows the club. He's versatile, like you're saying. It works on so many levels. It really, really does. And as a result of that, I don't think it's going to go through because it makes too much sense for West Ham. It really makes too much sense for West Ham. But don't get me wrong, I'd love it. It'd be brilliant. He won't be registered for at least the first set of European games as a result of it, because obviously the squad was put out a few days earlier in the week. Maybe January we could get him in. That'd be handy. Obviously, of course, he's got signed first of all. But yeah, it makes complete sense. It's squad depth, homegrown. Seems to be have a lot of respect of everybody in the training ground as well, for that matter. So it's a win-win, but because it's a win-win, I just can't see it happening. It's too much of common sense. But again, if it happens, I'll be very, very happy with this. Russ has said about me taking the mick out of Arsenal, saying that Creswell's too good for him. Says that was an open goal. JP, well done. Bill, welcome, mate. Good to see you, fella. Guys, there's 15 people watching. Please do like. If you haven't already done so, please do subscribe. And more importantly, please do put your comments in while we talk about these subjects as we go, and let's get everybody interacting with each other. It's brilliant. So there's 15 people watching and not one person saying anything. Come on, I know you're there. You can communicate. You can tap your bloody fingers, can't you? But yeah. So let's get in now. We're about halfway through, mate. Let's get into the actual start of the season itself.
Mm-hmm.
What the fuck's happened? Seriously, our best start since Harry Redknapp's 99-2000 campaign. How the bloody hell? I remember joking with you a few weeks ago. We mentioned it last time, and Bill will say it will back me up on this as well. And Dennis, if you're still in the conversation, I said 5 points from 3 games. Be over the moon with it. Bloody 2 points behind City. 4 games in, unbeaten, on goal difference with Spurs and Liverpool, and who's the other? There's another one we're on. Arsenal, isn't it? Arsenal as well.
Yeah, so I was going to say the other mob from North London.
The wannabes. Yeah,
that's it.
But honestly, mate, seriously, give us your breakdown of it, because obviously we've spoken about a couple of games, so there's no point really going. I mean, give us your thoughts on the games we weren't able to talk to, but it was Lincoln and what was the other
No, we
one?
haven't played Lincoln yet, mate.
That's right, Luton, and what was the other one? It was the other. It was the away game after Chelsea. It was the Monday. It's the Sunday night, wasn't it? That you weren't able to talk to us about.
Who have we played? Bloody hell, I'm struggling to remember.
Oh, come on, man! It's only been 4 games.
Brighton.
It's Bournemouth.
No, about Brighton. No, we did Brighton.
Bournemouth, Brighton, Chelsea.
Bournemouth, Chelsea. Bournemouth, Chelsea there. Brighton. We did Brighton.
Brighton and Luton. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, anybody would have said it. No one would have said, yeah, we'll get, from a West Ham perspective, it's maximum points. It's maximum points.
No.
You know, it's but yeah, so give us your rundown on that.
Absolutely buzzing.
A bit longer than that, please, fella.
I never ever expected it. I sort of hoped that we might pick up wins against Bournemouth and Luton to maybe give us 6 points out of 4 games. Never expected us to beat Chelsea. Sort of saw it as a bit of a free hit. If we got a point, then great. And obviously our record against Brighton is absolutely atrocious. Haven't won since we was down in the Championship. So I mean, again, wasn't really expecting anything there at all.
Only 13th time lucky.
Yeah, well, that's it. Well, obviously, clearly it's unlucky for some, but not for us. So, great. I mean, it's such a, it is just amazing. It really is because, as I said before, you ultimately you want to see your team win every single game that they play, and for us to have won 3 out of the 4 is just, amazing. 2 out of the 42 wins. And a couple of draws is just
no.
Brilliant.
It was only Brighton that we. Sorry, it's only Bournemouth that we drew. We beat everybody else. We beat Chelsea. We beat.
Sorry, yes. Sorry, I was right the first time. I corrected myself. I was right the first time.
See, this is what I'm talking about. This is why it can't sink in, because we haven't seen this for 20 odd years.
I just never saw it coming. I think really that again, we've mentioned it earlier, the meltdown on social media. I think the one that we had after Bournemouth, immediately after the game on there was pretty hilarious, really. People criticising everything that had gone wrong. It's like, come on, it's one game. Let's see what happens. We've got another 37 to go. For sure, if we're still looking at this sort of position come, the end of October, November, and results aren't very good, then yeah, but I can understand people having a meltdown, but that's just a different time now. I think the thing is that I think you can see that Moyes has clearly got the team playing in a certain way, which is to an extent typical David Moyes. He wants to sit back behind the ball and to try and play on the counter. But obviously, clearly, the way that they were set up against Chelsea, that sort of after about the 15-minute mark, for the rest of that first half, obviously clearly Chelsea just completely dominated the game and really should have scored at least 2 goals. Probably at least one if hadn't missed a penalty. So maybe it could have been 4-1 down at half time, to be honest. But clearly you could see that Moyes got into them at half time and told them that wasn't acceptable. And look at the difference in the performance. Something that you said yourself earlier, JP, that clearly the players are fully committed to him and are listening to what he's saying. So there's no, none of this, what we were saying before about Steidle and Moyes, maybe there's not a relationship that would filter down. Clearly, that isn't the case. The players are totally behind him. And again, classic Moyes performance really again in the game against Brighton. Again, yeah, okay, we were happy to concede the ball. But if you go back the 2 seasons where we finished 6th and 7th, a lot of the games were like that. A lot of the time we were very much getting, yes, a lot of it was from set pieces, but a lot of it was through fast counter-attacking football. And that's what we did very effectively against Brighton. All right, there was a few chances towards the end that Brighton had, but, for the most part, we were in total control of that game. And one of the things that I've said on here, and I've mentioned it as well on Bill's channel as well, is that the question for me wouldn't be against your Chelsea's or even your Brighton, the footballing teams. We know that Moyes isn't. He's going to sit back. He's going to sit on the edge of the penalty area and try and play on the counter. What we would know a little bit more what I wanted to see Moyes do, which is what we did against Luton. Admittedly, I only watched the highlights and looking at the stats. But clearly, Moyes tried to get us to play football. We had more of the ball than what Luton did for the majority of that game. And I think that is credit to him that he's trying to implement a different style of football. Obviously you've got the coaching staff. So, I've only just come in like this week, the 3 new coaches. But I think that credit has got to be given there. I don't think he's going to get any, mind. But I think that he's got to be given a lot of credit for actually going, hey, hang on a minute here. Luton are prepared. They want to sit back and try and play on the counter. Well, if we want to win the game, we've got to try and change how we play. And I hope that when we play teams like Luton later on in the season, when we play Everton, Wolves, those sort of teams that you feel that are going to be struggling down the bottom end of the table, I hope that we do try and he continues with that approach, especially in the home games. Happy days, full credit. I'm fully expecting next week against Man City in the league that he's going to go back to type and he's going to try and sit back on the edge of the penalty area and try and play on the counter. I haven't got a major problem with that. Yes, I would love West Ham to be playing tiki-taka football, like Pep, but it ain't going to happen.
No,
it's never
not
going
for
to happen.
A long, long, long time.
No, and I'm not being funny. If we were to try and go toe-to-toe for Man City playing that way, it would be a cricket score. No exaggeration, because they just pick you off. I mean, they'll probably pick us off anyway, but I think if you go toe-to-toe, because of the spaces that you're going to leave in behind, they'd have a field day. But look, I think it's a fantastic start. It's absolutely brilliant. Every West Ham fan is buzzing. I don't think anybody expected it. And as far as I'm concerned, long may it continue, because it's bloody brilliant. As you said there, all the teams, that we're level on points with, no one expected us to be there after this sort of stage. It's great. It's a great buzz about the club at the minute.
I completely agree with you, mate. Bill saying, agree with you both about re-signing Lingard is a weird win-win. Feels weird saying that. Obviously, Brighton. We covered that, Bill. With all the initial lack of transfer business, a couple of coaches leaving, and some worrying pre-season results, none of us saw this start coming. Agreed, mate. And as we said at the time as well, for that matter, coaches leave clubs all the time. It's just we're not used to that, because that doesn't happen with West Ham. When a coach leaves, the whole bloody team, the whole bloody lot leave. It's but it doesn't. But no, you're right at the same point though, Geese. You really, really are. And guys, my Man City preview's coming up on Thursday. So you might want to watch that, because there's a few little tongue-in-cheek things in there. It's going to be just making it a bit light. I mean, because of the position that we are in with them and stuff, and what goal difference we need to overtake them on Saturday. It's going to be quite funny to well, I hope you guys are going to enjoy it anyway. So make sure you check it out. Of course, as well, for that matter, bloody camera, I'm going to knock it out one of these days. Contrast-based lenses does my head in. I got the Europa League draw was done as well, mate. We got Bacca Topola, Freiburg, and Olympiacos to play as well. So mate, what are you thinking on that draw?
I'm pretty happy with it, really. I don't think he's not going to be a walk in the park like the Europa League was. The Europa Conference League was last year. But I quite like that. I want to see competitive games. I don't want us just to turn up and win 3-4, 5-0 comfortably. It's nice, the odd game and that, but I think it's going to be tough. And that's what you want. You want to see yourself being pitted against decent opposition, and we definitely have that in this case. And obviously, as we know, Olympiacos obviously Champions League pedigree as well, so they're not going to be any mugs. I think we will qualify out of the group. I'd be very surprised if we didn't. Whether or not we come, I think that's got to be the aim for me. Is make sure you qualify. And get into that next stage, of the competition. But I'm looking forward to it. I think there's going to be some tough games. I'm sure that there won't be too many people going over to Serbia. As I put in the chat, looking up their ground, I think it's about 4,500. I think so.
I don't think it's even that, mate. I genuinely think it's I haven't done my research on it yet, but from what I understand of it, it's about 3,000 or something.
Well, that's Wikipedia for you. That isn't maybe that good with the updated.
We'll have 5 people in the away end of things, the way things are going. Do you know what I mean?
Shocking. Which would have probably one of the lowest. It's a shame actually that's not the first away game, because obviously we're obviously barred.
Which, by the way, so I really take issue with. I genuinely take issue with. Yes, all right, our reputation has preceded us in certain things, but that's no excuse. We didn't start it. The away fans were absolutely nowhere near what was going on that has caused this. And what are the players and the fans that were over in the family end meant to do? What, just stand there and watch them do it as they tirade through the stand and go at people? UEFA have got a lot of things to make up for, and common sense is certainly one of them. You know, it's absolutely ridiculous.
See, I thought it was for the what did they throw? What was the object? I think was it a lighter or something they threw in the final with the Fiorentina player in the court?
It wasn't. What it was a couple of pint glasses thrown together, thrown at the player. Yeah, I get it, but that's the point. Yeah, that's nowhere near as high because it's. I guarantee, mate, it's the combination of the two together. It's not one, it's not the other, it's two together. If one hadn't happened, I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm not condoning anybody throwing anything at any stage onto a pitch of a player. You just don't do that. But at the same point, that ground would have had cameras, so you would have easily been able to pick out who that person was. Everybody had IDs in there. Yeah, you had to prove your identity to prove you had the ticket. There'd be records of everybody's passport on file. There's absolutely no excuse for those people not to be punished and then punish everybody else on top of it. But that's what I'm saying. It's such a stupid thing to do. And I'm saying that on UEFA level, I say I'm not condoning what happened in the semi-final. That's beyond the pale. Sorry, in the final, that's beyond the pale. But
yeah,
what happened in the semi-final, those guys should have been punished harder than West Ham have done, and they weren't. That's the problem. They had a few €1,000 fine and a slap on the wrist in comparison to banning the away supporters who work bloody hard to get the money to go over and watch these games. So yeah, Serbia and Greece. You know, it's just, I mean, don't get me wrong, Greece away is going to be fantastic, of course.
Yeah, no. Well, I think most people will be going there to go for a cooler climate, I think, at the minute, to be honest.
But, you know, it's I mean, I agree with it. It's a great draw from our point of view. Back atop Polo, how you bloody pronounce it. I got to learn that by the time the game comes around. Otherwise, I was getting crucified for it. Is the only one out of the lot that worries me. Yeah, reason being is because we know Freiburg to a degree. You know, we know Olympiacos. Olympiacos are a very, very good side and have been for a long, long time. Not so much in the last few years, but in general, they've always been quite a difficult team to play. A team out of nowhere, that's a little bit difficult, you know, because absolutely anything's possible. In the same way, I generally hope that we approach that game in the same way that we approached Luton. We have no idea how these guys are going to play against us, so therefore just go out and play basic football, get the things done right, do the basics, make sure. I mean, at the end of the day, guys, we are never going to keep a clean sheet between now and the end of the season. It's just impossible. We can't do it. I mean, last time we were on when we were talking about the Brighton game, mate, I said to you, we can't keep a clean sheet. It just doesn't happen. We can go a phenomenal 60, 70 minutes defending for our lives, and all of a sudden, Aguero will turn around to Zuma or something and just go, "Do you know what, mate? Shit, no, hang on, there's a ball." Do you know what I mean? It's just, and that's the reason why we conceded the Luton goal as well, for that matter. The same problems, every single goal we've conceded this season so far has been under exactly the same circumstances, and that's the only worry that I've got, is the fact that communication needs to get sorted out. We we're not Liverpool. It's not a case of, right, we're going to concede 2, we'll score 3 against you. We're not on that level yet. But, I mean, even, I hate to say it, but even Liverpool aren't at that level at the minute. But, do you know what I mean? It's just that it worries me that the communication and the spacing has been issues for a long, long time. Let's just have a catch up with what everyone's saying in the chat. Robert's in. Hello, mate. Good to see you, mate. Bill's saying, I'm happy with the draw, the group overall. It could have been easier, but then again, it could have been far worse. Yeah, mate, we could have been Group B. That draw of death, you know, it was a really tricky one. It was tricky in the Champions League draw. God bless Newcastle. Christ knows how they're going to survive that one. I'll never bloody know. And then Group B for the Europa League draw as well wasn't exactly that easy either, for that matter, from what I remember of seeing. Rob's also saying this could be controversial, but would anyone really be disappointed if we finished third in Europa League and then successfully defend the trophy we won in Prague? That's a very, very good question there, Rob. Very, very good question. I don't think it's that controversial for anybody over the age of 29. But yeah, it would be great to do it, of course. Mark, your thoughts on that? Would you take dropping down to the Conference League and having a second bash at it?
Do you know what? I don't really know. I think I would be disappointed if we did finish third, because I feel that what you want to see year in, year out for me and your football club is you want to see your team progress in some way. So a progression for us would be getting out of that group, like what we did a couple of seasons ago. So I would be disappointed if we went back in the conference. But you know, to be honest, I don't actually know who's in the conference in terms of how. I know obviously Aston Villa are in it, but I don't know how competitive it is going to be. I don't think it's going to be quite as straightforward like this season as what it was last year in terms of winning it. But yeah, I think for me, I want us to see us get out of the group and go, you know, maybe semi-finals again. I think could potentially is a realistic target in the Europa League for me.
Okay, mate. So I'll just interject here. I've got the draw up. This is group stage, match day 1.
Yeah.
Apologies in advance for the pronunciations of some of these. We've got LOSC. I'm saying it that way because that's how it's done. It's Olimpiaja, Fenerbahce. There's a couple of Turkish teams in there. Genk, Fiorentina, HJK, POAK, which I remember, but I can't remember the pronunciation of it.
Panathinaikos.
I think it is actually, mate. Yeah. Alkmaar, Legia Warsaw, Zrinski, Fenerbahce, Nordisland, Frankfurt, Aberdeen, Dynamo Zagreb, Lugano, Luglet, Spartak Trnava, Club Rouge, Besiktas, Bakalini, Ghent. Mate, there's clubs in there that we recognise. Let me put it that way. I say about 2/3 of those we know.
There's some that's a decent pedigree in there because some good teams that have a couple of the Turkish teams that you mentioned, and I think Panathinaikos as well have got again Champions League pedigree about them. So there's not any mugs in that competition this year, and I think. With Roma winning it the first year and obviously us now, I think when you look at the English supporters, I think they're actually quite jealous and envious of what we set out, what we achieved last year. Because, a lot of them haven't won a cup similar to ourselves for such a long time.
Mate, sorry to interject, but I love it because we've got a couple of Arsenal fans at work, right? And they haven't been given it the big one, but every time one of them gives me a little bit of grief, I always say to him, come back when you've won something, mate. Yeah, just we'll have that conversation in a few years. But it is. And the reason why I say that is let's not forget, this is the 3rd season that the Conference League has been around, right? It's not. I don't know. Is it still called the Conference League or is it the?
Yeah.
It's not the Europa anymore. It's just UEFA Conference League now, isn't it?
Oh,
that's
take that away, right? Right.
But yeah, and that's the reason why everybody sticks their noses up at it, right? It's because it's brand new. That's it. Everybody sticks that what was it? The only thing that any team can play in and win it that doesn't mean anything in terms of progression and help club status is the Community Shield. You know, you can play in Europe in the League Cup, you can play in Europe in the FA Cup, and you can play in Europe finishing 7th, and you can play in Europe finishing winning the Conference League, and likewise Europa League to the Championship, Champions League. You know, that's the way it works. And as a result of that, I guarantee, if Aston Villa and hope they do, if they do win the Conference League, you'll see a lot of people going, actually, this is going to be a worthwhile competition to get in, especially bearing in mind that, is it the end of this season or for this season? I can't remember which way round it is. That 5th place now gets you into the Champions League as well, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Again, like you, I'm not sure when that comes in.
I think because I remember Tony Cottee saying on the West Ham Way podcast that he did with Dave and X, he mentioned it. So I think it's this season. Right. So it's now going to be 1st to bloody 8th to get you European football. You know, and it's going to make it more. I mean, don't get me wrong. If we finish 5th and we get in the Champions League, even if it's like the group stages, the qualifying rounds, I'd be loving it. I'd be perfect.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what. I'd give Moyes the freedom of Newham. I think I'd give him a contract for life.
Mate, genuinely, if I was married and Moyes got us in the Champions League, I'd give him the freedom of misses, man. I tell you, I seriously would. I would you can have him. You can have him for a night. It's not a problem. You got us into the Champions League. We ain't been in it for 50, 60 years. Go for it. But no, honestly, it would be phenomenal for us to do that. I mean, at the end of the day, I was saying to a friend of mine earlier today, and me and Bill have joked about it as well. I've genuinely felt like a jinx for West Ham, because the day I was born was when we won the FA Cup against Arsenal in 1980. Right, we've done fuck all for 43 years. I genuinely thought it was me, because it's like I come from a West Ham family. I was born on that day. We've done bugger all since Mum was in labour. You know, and then obviously, that I was like, that's fine. We've won the Conference League. That jinx is over. But that's genuinely how it felt for a long time, because it's like, the closest we ever got was obviously the League Cup final the following year against Liverpool, which we lost, and then pretty much nothing until the FA Cup final in 2006. Moved strictly on from that PTSD that everyone's got from that, and also for that matter, the League Cup semi-final under Grant, the semi-final of the conference, the Europa League as well, for that matter. So, if you think over the last 15 years, give or take, we've been building up to this. We've been building this, this is what everybody seems to forget. And one thing that everybody seems to forget, and quite conveniently, is when everyone's praising the Icelandics for what they were able to do. Unfortunately, apart from obviously the crash, and it screwed the club up, which we're still trying to sort out now, almost 20 years later, was the fact that when it was announced before Joe Public got a win of it, before it was announced, they were the Icelandics were the people that started the Olympic Stadium bid. Nothing to do with Sullivan and Golden Brady. Because if you go back and watch that the interview that Sullivan did when they took over, he said, we're following on from what the Icelandics do, and we want to get into the Olympic Stadium. Everybody's forgotten about that. Completely everybody.
Yeah. Well, I think at one point they were looking to buy the old like the post office over in, I'm not exactly sure where it is, but over at West Ham, weren't they? I think at one point, but
as a backup,
group, but obviously, I'm not over the moon about it, but I think you can't blame them really for going. Look at that. The amount of people that wanted to go to the semi-final that could, had 60,000 people, and people still couldn't get a ticket for it. So
exactly.
It would have been even worse if we'd still been at Upton Park. It's a shame that we've gone, and it's a shame that maybe we couldn't have redeveloped it. But hey, that's long gone now, and we've just got to get on with it, really.
Just going back to the chat, Rob's saying, if we get out of the group, do you think we'd realistically have a chance of winning it? I do have my doubts, and therefore I'd not mind. But the caveat is, if we defended the Europa Conference League trophies successfully. Yeah, I understand. I get what you mean, mate. But at the same point, if we're gonna have this progression, this bloody camera. If we're gonna get this, everybody must think I look pissed because it's all out of focus half the time. But if we're gonna progress, then Mark, as you eloquently said earlier, you've got to go up the ranks every single way. And we've won the Conference League. The next stage is winning the Europa League. It doesn't have to be this season. It would be nice if we do, of course. But going on that, because obviously that it is still part of the start of the season. Would you be happy if we got to the Europa League final but lost it?
No, knowing how I felt after the FA Cup final, no. I mean, I think.
Yeah, but sorry to interject, mate, but let's not forget the person that was everybody puts at fault in won the World Cup. Let me put it that way.
Well, yeah, he didn't exactly do bad, did he, in the end? Scaloni, it worked out pretty well for him, really. I think if you were maybe looking at it sort of in the cold light of day, maybe like what we did earlier on, over the summer and sort of look back on it sort of objectively, I think if, someone did say to you, kind of like, which is what the question is effectively, would you be happy with that? I think you probably would bite your hand off to see your team in a cup final. Do you know what I mean? But I think the emotion of probably losing would probably be a bit too much for me as well. But I would be disappointed really from that point of view. So yeah.
Yeah, I know what you mean, mate. But at the same point, when we were in the Conference League, I said that progress for me is going to the final because we got to the semi-final of the Europa League. And it is. It's not the same level of progression, but it is a progression nonetheless. In the same way that, in the same way that when you look at England, we've been to a quarter-final, a semi-final, and a final, all under Gareth Southgate. Granted, it's not been that consistent, but we were in the semis for the World Cup and we were in the final for the Euros. Or the other way around, whichever way around it was, I can't remember. But either way, it was semis for the World Cup, and then because COVID screwed up all my thinking up of what's been where and stuff, and obviously because we had the World Cup last year, well, I say last Christmas, but it's and that's why I'm getting confused with it all because I know Germany's next year for the Euros and that, but there's not much enough of a gap to be able to properly syncify it that way. But to get to a semi-final of the Europa League and then to get to the final in 2 seasons, if it does happen, touch wood, if it does happen, then I'd be happy with it. If we won it, fantastic. Everybody be absolutely over the moon because we're in the Champions League. But at the same point, if we lose it, I think you still qualify for Europe anyway if you're runners up in this, isn't it, or something?
I'm not sure. I've not heard that one, but yeah, definitely. If you win the Europa, then as you say, would be in the Champions League, which would I think would just blow everybody's minds. To be perfectly honest.
Do you know what the funny thing? The funny thing is let's say for argument's sake, this is never going to happen in a million years. Never going to happen in a million years, right? But we finish 6th this season, and we go on to win the conference, the Europa League.
I think I know where you're going with this.
Right. All right, go on then. Finish the sentence. Come on, cocky ass.
I reckon that there's one of 2 teams. I reckon there's 2 teams. I reckon that you're going to say that we knock out of the Champions League.
No. That's not where that wasn't where I was going with it, mate. No. Right, you're close. Okay. You're close, but no. How funny would it be, given how difficult it is to get into the top 4? Right, how funny would it be if we finish 6th and if we win the Europa League and we finish a position, two positions above Arsenal, and they get into the Europa as a result of it. I say it's never going to happen, and I'm not doing it to troll Russ. I don't think he's here anymore, to be honest with you. But it would just be one of the funniest things that we get into the Champions League, and one specific former player doesn't.
I think he'd have to deactivate his socials, to be honest, because I think the stick that he would get would just be would be unbearable for him, really. I mean, it would be, be fantastic, wouldn't it, if we were to get in the Champions League.
I mean, guys, before you start jumping in the chat, for the 12 people that are watching and literally just tuned in, because it's gone up a couple of counts, so a couple of viewers, so there'll be about a couple of minutes behind us. We are joking. I am joking. This is not going to happen in a million years, but it would be. But at the same point, it would be funny if it does happen, because we're starting to believe that anything is genuinely possible at the moment. We really, really are. And don't get me wrong, mate. I've got one of these sitting here in my little. And I've got an FA Cup which is over in the corner here as well, for that matter. So we've got we've got these two together, things that I've won in my lifetime, right? I would love to have another one of these, or the Europa League right next to it. It'd be phenomenal.
Haven't you got the plate for the Intertoto Cup? Unbelievable,
mate! 3 teams won it in that season. It's not a cup. It's funny you should say that. I know we're joking. And all jokes aside, mate. All jokes aside, I know we're joking about it, but not one person has mentioned it since we've won this. No. Not one person has ever said we were in it.
No, he doesn't. No. As you say, it was a very strange competition, shall we say, the Intertoto. But yeah, look, I mean, if we were to get in it, we're probably getting a little bit excited, a little bit carried away, and we are.
And it's all in joke, it's all in jest, guys. Don't worry.
But I mean, it as I say, it would blow my mind if that was to happen. So yeah, bring it on, West Ham. Don't let us down now.
All right, to put a no pun intended, but to put a needle in that bubble. Yeah, obviously next weekend we've got City. 2 points above us as it stands at the moment. Obviously, it could change going into this fixture, because Wolves play Liverpool going on in the Saturday early kickoff on the Saturday. Well, the lunchtime kickoff, I should say, on the Saturday. Question that I'm going to put to everybody in the preview anyway, but for those that are watching this, or at least watching the replay as well, guys, if you're watching this now, put your comments in the comment section live as we're doing this, because I really, really want to get your thoughts. There's 11 people watching. Come on, guys, give us your thoughts. You're David Moyes, right, this week, Mark?
Yeah.
Are you, because obviously bearing in mind we've got the League Cup, we've got 5 games between now and the end of the month. It's mental from that point of view. Are you putting out a full team against City, or are you going to punt it and try and get something out of the where are we? Let's have a look. Just let me bring up the calendar, right? So yes, okay. So we've got that's exactly what I thought. Right, we've got Man City on Saturday, and then the Thursday afterwards is the first Europa League game. Are you putting a full strength squad out against City, or are you putting a full strength squad out against the Serbian side, or would you do both?
I think what will happen. I think you'll go full strength.
No. City. You.
No. This is what I think. This is what he's going to do.
No. I'm not saying what you think you would. Yeah, just purely you. What you would do is David Moyes.
I would go full strength for City, because I think that it makes sense. I think it will go for the Czech team. The Serbian team. I think that it will be changed, and I would change it because I think we've got the squad to be able to mix it up in terms of bringing in different player personnel. I mean, the most obvious one that I would be changing is Fabianski to come in goal. It happened last year. I don't see any reason why I wouldn't want to change that again for this year. So I think, yeah, you know, we've got a squad. That's what it's there for. I think we should use it. And I think, yeah, full strength for City. And then I think that you'd be looking at, I don't know, at least 4 or 5 changes, I think, for that Europa game.
Yeah. I'm in complete agreement with you, mate. 100%. Again, spoilers for the preview. But yeah, it is. I would go full strength against City and make, as Bill said, actually, to be fair, exactly what I'm thinking. Full strength against City, a couple of changes for Europa League. Yeah, Fabianski in goal. What else?
I think if Dino, the centre half, is fit, I think he comes in.
Mm-hmm.
If not, Ogbonna will play probably instead of Aguerd.
Mm-hmm.
I think I wouldn't be surprised if Ben Rama comes in.
Mm-hmm.
Because he didn't. He started, didn't he, in against Luton? So I'm trying to think in the last team. I think I'll be surprised. I think that I wouldn't be surprised if Fornal starts as well in the European game, and maybe a change at fullback.
Personally, I agree with you, but because I can see that happening. But if it was me, I'd have 4-0 against City. I really, really would. Not out on the left. I would, because what we seem to be doing is we seem to be going with a 4-1-4-1 formation at the moment with Alvarez as the only defensive midfielder in there. Obviously, like, it might change because there's a good chance that Souček's going to be available for either one of those 2 games that we're talking about. But I personally, in the midfield 4, I would have Bowen out on the right, Ward-Prowse and Ben Rama together, and either slip Paquetá down a little bit and to partner Alvarez, or have Fornals there. You know, this is the thing. This is why I love about having these amount of players, and I said it at the start of last season as well. You need rotation, which you've mentioned on. You know, you need to be able to rotate players here and there.
Yeah.
And having, technically, if Lingard joins, it would be a 26-man squad.
Mm-hmm.
You know, people seem to forget that the 24 the homegrown players don't matter. It doesn't matter. So as long as we've got 24 decent players in there, I'll say decent, but yeah, of course it needs to be decent. I'm not going to say now we've got to have 20 average blokes and 4 guys from the pub, you know. But it's as long as we've got a core of, like what Chelsea are trying to do, a core of the juniors, but also a separate core of experienced players to balance it out, which is kind of what I think we'll be going down in another couple of seasons, the way things are looking. But yeah, I personally would have Ben Rama, Fornals, Ward-Prowse, and Bowen as the attacking 4, Alvarez and excuse me, Alvarez, and maybe rotate with him and Paquetá. You know, this is the thing. There's so many viable options we can do here. And even like for example, you could push Paquetá up as a number 10 if we needed to. He works better sitting deep, making those runs into the number 10 position. But again, Rob's saying full whack against City, try keep the momentum going. Agreed, 100%. But again, this is what I'm saying. Is the fact that it's nice to try and figure out what Moyes is going to do, even though 85-90% of the squad is predictable at the same time. You know, it's like for example, when we did the Chelsea home game, when Dennis and I were relatively pissed, I should say, going through the starting 11. He was so drunk. It creased me up. It was so funny. I went, Dennis, talk us through the starting 11. Yeah, one change. Yeah. Thanks, mate. But yeah, dropping Fornals for Ward-Prowse made sense for the Chelsea game, 100%.
Yeah.
But I would like to see Fornals and Paquetá and Ward-Prowse in the midfield. I think it would be brilliant. But at the same point, you can understand if that would happen, but also you can understand at the same point if that doesn't happen at the same. So you know, and that's good. That's what we want. Not. I'm not just saying that as a West Ham fan. I'm saying that as a football fan in general. Yeah, you want to be able to not because if you and I, mate, if you and I can figure out what the starting 11 is going to be, people that make their entire careers out of this are going to be able to predict it.
And of course, one of the as we're going working out which players potentially going to come in, listening there too, I'm thinking we're both a pair of absolute dipsticks here. The one player that we haven't mentioned, obviously the last signing, Judas. I think he will play, or so I think he will start actually the Europa game. I genuinely do. I think he'll come in. He's at some point you've got to give him some minutes, and I think I agree totally with what you were saying. You know, we've got a squad, we've got genuinely, and I think this is one of the things that excites me about this season is that we could take out a player, and yet we've got someone who could come in, and the performance level could be equally as good, if not better.
Well,
and I think
I agree with you.
Some cases, I think there are some players that you probably look at and go, "Oh, I'm not entirely sure about him coming in or whatever." But I think that it just gives you a little bit more confidence that there is genuine strength in depth and competition for places. And I think that's going to keep everybody on their toes for the whole season. And I think, as I say, that genuinely excites me for this year, really.
Well, that's a very good point, mate, and I agree with you 100%. But as I said at the start of the conversation, the jury is out about Kudus, right? Personally, as much as I agree with you, I reckon he's going to be on the bench. I really, really think he will. Like for example, Bill's made a very good point. Yep, Kudus surely has to start the European game, 100%. But when we're talking about City, yes, come on at the 60th minute, which Moyes loves to do on a regular basis. Roundabout, make that sort of substitution. Come on, and we see him make his debut at home, and give Pep Guardiola and all the players of City to have something to think about. Or flash it the other way round. He starts instead of Ben Rama. Boom, makes his full debut. Because again, it's an unknown quantity. Yes, everybody will know what he's capable of from the scouting reports, but I don't think anybody's properly seen him play. So that's one of the reasons why Ward-Prowse was started against Chelsea, because not only was he match fit for playing for the Southampton game the week before, so he's kept his physicality up, but also at the same point, guaranteed, Pochettino wasn't expecting it. That's what happens. That's what wins you games. Bringing in players that nobody thinks you're gonna pick. And I really, really hope that Moyes continues down that line of thinking. And of course, mate, before we wrap this one up, there's one player that you touched on it, but we haven't really talked about it as yet. And I've mentioned him a couple of times already. Souček's new contract. Do you think this is a good idea?
Yeah, I genuinely do. I can understand the stick that he got last year, because if you can go back to when he first joined and his first sort of 18 months or so, he was very, very good in both boxes, especially in the opposition box, and contributed with quite a few goals. I think it's fairly, to me, watching. I don't go to the games every week. Unfortunately, I'm not season ticket holder anymore. But when you do watch it, you can tell that last season his role changed. He was no longer being allowed to go and join in the box, and his game probably never has been and never will be about knitting the play, getting the ball off the centre back on the half turn and turning defence into attack, or just generally just trying to keep the ball. He can't do it. I know that might seem a bit strange for a footballer that in the mid, especially middle of midfield, not being
defensive
able to
midfielder.
Do that.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, but that's just not his game. He's about his physicality, his strength, his power, and being a general sort of nuisance in both penalty boxes, really. I think if you look at his performances this year, obviously, as you've already said about Alvarez effectively being the wall in front of the back four, Souček can actually concentrate now on what he's good at, which obviously, as I've just explained.
Not a
so
lot.
for me, no, it's not a lot. But I think what he's going to do. I know we haven't. I think he has tried to actually break forward, and we have said that in some of the other, the recap videos, that you can see that he's actually tried to break forward and get into the box a little bit more and get on the end of things. The Bournemouth game probably being the best example. When he hit that shot that sort of hit to a deflection onto the post or whatever happened now. But yeah, I'm happy with it. I think he's a popular player, in the dressing room. I think he is a leader as well with the players. Maybe not in what people of maybe of our age, JP would maybe think of a captain, a Tony Adams type, or even a John Terry type. A bit of a.
Wait! Don't you use those swear words? I don't want to be demonetised for using the JC word.
But you know what I mean? That type of. That type of captain, whereas I think the modern day captain's a bit more leading by with their performances and stuff like that. So, but he is a leader.
Yeah.
I'm happy with it. I think it makes sense. He's starting to show the Souček that we know.
Okay, just to interject, the Souček we know, is only back because he's been allowed to do what he did when he first joined us.
Yeah.
And as a result of it, this is the one. I'm not saying this is purely the only reason, but I think with Declan Rice and his ego that he wants to push up further up the field, causing Souček to drop back as a defensive midfielder. And you're absolutely right, mate. You touched on it earlier. That's not his work. He's a box-to-box midfielder. He can defend, but he's not really a defender. He's more of a float. How would you call it? A floating five, I think. Do you know what I mean? He's just like he's too defensive for a midfielder, but he's not defensive enough to be a defender. Do you know what I mean? It's that sort of floating little.
He hasn't got. I don't think he's. The thing is with him, he hasn't got the attributes to do one either like a holding midfield player. Who then is going to be able to pass the ball out, but then he hasn't got the technical ability to be pushed into, say, like a number 10 type role, because he hasn't got that quality. And I think when he was scoring goals before, he still had that issue, but no one noticed too much because he was scoring.
Yeah, exactly. And one of the reasons for that was because Rice was sitting deep.
Yeah.
The roles changed round. It worked one season. It didn't work the second one. So yeah, there's a lot of factors, but I joke that Souček doesn't do a lot, and last season and a little bit of the previous season he didn't really, to be fair. But yes, and as Bill's just literally put in the chat exactly what I'm going to say, so I'm going to read it out on the agreed mark. Souček's form's really improved this season, which is great to see. Having a proper break in the summer for the first time in a while has probably helped him. Yes, and that's kind of the point, mate. Is the fact that he's back to his best because he's allowed to be able to do his best, and that's not what was the words were last season. To a degree. Now, don't get me wrong. Having 6 touches in a 90-minute game when you're in the midfield is unacceptable. Under any circumstances, is unacceptable. From the Arsenal home game onwards, which is one of he had 6 touches in that game. From that game, but he started to develop a little bit more towards that in that game, because if I remember correctly, I think like in the previous game he had like 4 touches or something stupid like that. 3 of those in the first half. But yeah, he's improved massively. You can see the smiles is back on his face. He's always been quite a happy character anyway, for what you've just said. But his smile's back on even for example. Do you know what? If we'd have played Bournemouth at the end of the season, yeah, and he'd scored he'd gone to hit that goal, but it bounced off the post and went into the keeper's hands, and because if you remember that, yeah. The camera went straight on him. He was laughing as he was running up. If he'd have done that at the end of last season, all hell would have broken loose. He's not taking it seriously. This is why he's so shit. Blah, 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 blah. Right? But the fact is, that one of the reasons why he was laughing, it was probably because the same reason that the majority of us were laughing, because that only happens to West Ham, that it can bounce off the post and go right into the goalkeeper when it's completely, all laws of physics prevent it from actually happening in the first place. I agree. I am very happy with that Souček signed this. I do genuinely hope, as we touched on earlier, I do genuinely hope that Soufal is the next one to go, and then Bowen as well, for that matter.
Yeah,
because if we get those two tied up to a slightly longer contract, I mean, I understand the reasons why the Bowen situation is dragging. I don't agree with a lot of the situation that it could be as a result of, but at the same point, he is one of our best players of the last few seasons. You can't argue that. Even as shit as he was for the majority of last season, he is one of our very, very pivotal players. I said to Bill, and Bill roasted me for this, and I still maintain it, that Bowen is our version of oh God, his name's dropped out of my head now. Raheem Sterling when he was at City, right? Bowen and Raheem Sterling are capable of scoring 10 times more than they do. And this is why both players at an England level and domestic level really infuriate me, because you just know that Bowen can do better than he can, and Sterling can do better than he's been able to do. I mean, granted, obviously, he's kicked on a little bit this season with Chelsea with his goal conversions, and that's brilliant from that point of view. But Bowen's very similar to like Antonio in that respect. You think, right, especially last season when he's on the balls, like, right, where's this going? Is this going back on the net? Is this going on the crossbar? Is this going into Rose Ed? You never knew with Bowen, and he's capable of doing so much more. He really, really is. And and that's one of the reasons why Liverpool were looking at him a little while back, was because they see that same potential in him that the majority of us see, and the potential we certainly saw in game time a few seasons back. And this is one of the reasons why I know a lot of people are still getting pissed off, because, as Bill mentioned earlier, relatively crap transfer business, leaving it to the last minute, etc., etc. It's West Ham at the end of the day. But at the same point, we can't let a player like Soufal, like Bowen, or even Ogbonna for that matter, piss around with the contract negotiations for too long. It's not good. It's just not good in practice. I'm not saying in any shape or form give them what they want, but no. What I'm saying is just either you agree it or you don't. With a player like Bowen, you have to 100% just do everything that you can, because at the end of the day, yes, we might get a pretty penny for him, but I'd rather he be in the club scoring for us than be in the opposition scoring against us.
Yeah.
So, guys,
go
on, mate.
We've definitely got to get Bowen's contract sorted out. He's on fire at the minute. I won't say the rest of the song.
Hey, mate, sorry to interject, but I rewatched a video earlier in the week where Danny Dyer is having is that Soccer Aid interview that Danny Dyer did.
Yeah.
And he was saying, look, even I start singing that song sometimes.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I think, he started off the season superbly. He is on fire at the minute, and I think that I'm a little bit wary, kind of, which is what you're sort of alluding to, giving someone exactly what they want, because then you don't know is there suddenly just going to be a drop off, and then you're then stuck with a player on a huge wage and you can't get rid of him if his performance is really diff.
He's not that personality, but you're right. You can't run that risk.
I don't think he is. No, I don't think he is. But sort of more as a general thing.
Yeah.
But I think you've just got to get it done. Just got to get it done. He's more likely to score you 15, 20 goals a season than Antonio. Let's put it like that.
Bill, thank you very much, mate. We're about to wrap up on this, but you've absolutely put Mark in the headlights now. As I said before the season started, Mark, we both had West Ham finishing 11th at the end of the season. Has your opinion changed?
Well, I did say, Bill, at the time that we hadn't actually signed anybody. I don't think at that point. So I said if we'd signed a few players, then I did feel that we could get into the top 10. I based on the start, I think we'll probably have the league sewn up by Easter. No, look, I mean, joking aside, I think yeah, we could. I think top 8 is realistic from this position now, and we should really be challenging for it. I know we've got next couple of league games good tough against City and Liverpool, but I think the confidence and the form that we've got, we've just beaten Chelsea at home, and I think we must, a couple of weeks back, we must have some good confidence within the squad. So yeah, I think top 8 I think has got to be a realistic aim for us now.
I agree with you, mate. That should be a realistic target, 100%. Don't think we're going to get there. I don't think. To be honest with you, to go from 14th to 10th, I'd be very, very happy with that. Very, very happy with that. If we get into the top 8, as we were kind of half joking about a little bit earlier, then of course, yeah, ecstatic. European football once for the 4th season in a row. Regardless of whatever happens in the conference in the Europa League. I can't, mate, stop saying conference. I keep saying conference. We've said it so much over the last 5 months now. It's still ingrained in the back of there. But yeah, no, it is. It's phenomenal. It's gonna wherever we finish, I'll be happy as long as we go out and we keep playing the entertaining football that we've currently been playing. And that's all it needs. That's genuinely all it matters. I was going to say Jamie Redknapp, then. It's not Jamie Redknapp. Jamie Scouser. Carragher. Lip service during the Luton game, granted, but he's not wrong in any shape or form when he was saying about the West Ham way is playing entertaining football, having somebody to cheer on like we had with Di Canio at that point. That's what the West Ham way is. So Sam Allardyce, if you're bloody watching, right? I know it's 15 years too late for you, son, but that's what the West Ham way is. Yeah, the West Ham. He did crack me up. I know it was tongue in cheek from him to a degree, but saying so, what is the West Ham way? Playing pretty football and losing every week. I mean, he had the audacity to say it, but it was spot on because we've been relegated trying to do that. So there you go. Yeah. But yeah, there's not many times that I agree with Carragher when he's talking about West Ham. It's the ironic thing about when pundits go on about your team. You agree with them about every other team they talk about, but when it comes to West Ham, hang on, mate, I don't think you know what you're talking about there. But no, he's always been a man of the people, Carragher. I mean, I know he makes out that he's a Liverpool fan and all that, but he's blatantly an Everton fan. It's really fucking obvious he's an Everton fan because he comes from an Everton family, and it's all good. But guys, thank you very, very much for sticking around with us for this hour and a half. It's been brilliant. I'm definitely going to go and have my 3rd shower of the day. I'm sweating like crazy. It's ridiculous. Mark, thank you very, very much for taking the time to come and join us once again, mate.
No, pleasure. Thanks for having me on. Really enjoyed it, and yeah, looking forward to City on Saturday.
Be one of the few supporters that mate, I believe me. But no, honestly, guys, thank you very, very much for your time. If you haven't already done so, please do like, share, and subscribe. Well, like and subscribe. There's no point sharing. We're coming to the end of it now. But yeah, as I say, the preview for City is all ready to go. I'm just waiting for a couple of other bits and pieces. That's going to be filmed on probably Wednesday. It'll be available on Thursday. So, guys, make sure you're aware for that. As I say, there's a little bit of tongue-in-cheek in there, but we're in the right position to have those sort of jokes in there. But, guys, in the meantime, enjoy the rest of your Sunday. Try and chill out as much as you can, in every shape or form, literally and figuratively. And we'll see you very, very soon. All the best now. Take care.